Okay, well, Allison, thanks for having me here today. So, little known fact, Allison's my sister-in-law. So I'm married to her husband's sister. So get that right. And they're also our neighbors. We kind of back in there. So anyway, it's not like I had a whole lot of choice about whether I was going to come or not. But anyways, I'm glad to be here. As Allison mentioned, I went to Chipola. So I dropped out of high school back in 82, and took the GED and came up here to college. And so I had a great time while I was here. I was here a year and a half, and I can honestly tell you that it's where I really kind of started to, for the first time, figure out a little bit of who I was. I think high school, you spend so much time, it's the activities and you're growing up and adolescence and stuff like that. But this is the time where you kind of start to figure out a little bit about yourself, a little bit of self-discovery. One of the things that I was just talking with some of the faculty about is that I ended up majoring in history in college. And so when I came here, I had different ideas about what I would do or things I might want to do. But there I discovered something that I enjoyed. I enjoyed history. I excelled at it. And so when it came time to declare a major down at the University of Florida, history was that for me. It was also the fastest way to become a Marine officer. So after being here at Chipola, I served a year and a half with my church on a mission, and then I went down to the Santa Fe, graduated from there with my AA, and I went there because it was close to Florida, and I knew that that's where I was going to go. And while I was there at Florida, at the same time, Renee and I got married, and we kind of started our journey and our family together. And I put this picture up here because, no matter what you do in life, no matter where you're from, your family is what's most important, right? And so no achievement, no success will be more important than your family. But from there, I decided I wanted to join the Marines, and so I did. I went to officer candidate school up in Quantico, Virginia. It's a special place where it's freezing in the summer and burning hot or freezing in the winter, burning hot in the summer. It's really terrible at times. But I learned a lot about myself there. I was there 3 weeks, and they finally let me get to a phone, and I called my wife and I said, "I'm quitting, I'm coming home." And she said, "You're not quitting." And from that time on, I've never, you just kind of had to, I had to tough it out. And I've never even thought about quitting anything since then, no matter how bad it was, no matter how tough it was. And so, sometimes you're going to hear from loved ones things you don't want to hear, but I'll tell you that you need to listen to them because they have your best interest at heart. And sometimes when you're in the thick of it, you may think, this is terrible, I can't do this, I just, I'm not cut out for this. But listen to your loved ones, they'll set you straight because they have your best interests at heart. And sometimes when you're in the struggle, it's not easy to see the other end of things, and sometimes they have that perspective. So I'm thankful for my wife and helping me out there, and that'll always stand out. So after college, I took a commission, was in the Marine Corps, did the normal infantry things in the Marine Corps. Everybody know what infantry is? So yeah, okay. So did that, and then my father had leukemia, and so I actually came back to Blountstown. I ran a family business for a little bit and did not enjoy that. So at the first opportunity, I went back on active duty, and I had some friends, and I'd inducted into First Force Reconnaissance and wasn't able to go because of my father's illness and stuff. So anyways, I ended up in the Special Operations community, and there it's where I really learned to love being in the military at a different level. It was a great opportunity. I made some of the best friends. We were in the Special Operations community. It's what we call joint, so it's got Navy and Army and Air Force, and in this community, it was the Navy. They're generally SEALs. They're from Spec War Com, or the SF guys and Rangers out of the Army, 160th pilots, and then Marines weren't. I was kind of like the token Marine at the time. We didn't have a MARSOC, which is the Marine Special Operations community at that time, and so, but I had a wonderful time there. And I tried to go back onto, thought about actually going back into the regular Marine Corps, but things just at that time, they were drawing down the service. So I ended up taking an appointment in Jeb Bush's administration, where, among other things, I was Director of Purchasing for the state of Florida. And it was a great opportunity, a lot of learning there. And so I was there probably about maybe a year and a half, maybe even a little bit long, but driving into work one day, and I came in and I couldn't find anybody, and they were all huddled around a TV, and it was 9/11, and we saw the planes going on the building. Later that day, my boss called me and she says, "Hey, are you going to have to go anywhere?" And I was like, "No, I'm not going to go anywhere. I'm a reservist. I just moved back to Marine Forces Europe." And so the next day I was standing in the office and I said, "I'm a liar." Got mobilized. And so I spent from that day until 2011 or 2012 on active duty. And so I was recalled to active duty. I spent some time in Europe, came back, ended back up on the Special Operations Community, Iraq and Afghanistan. With those tours of duty, what they entailed, and happy to answer questions about that later. From there, we came back and we moved to Europe, and while we were in Europe, I had a friend, I ran into him, and he said, White House personnel is looking to fill a role at the SBA, veterans related, and he said, I think you'd be perfect for it. And I said, there's no way I'm going to go to work in the Obama administration. I've been a lifelong Republican my entire life, and I was just like, I said, so he called me up and he says, don't be an idiot. This is a good job. You'd be helping veterans. Send me your resume. So I sent him my resume. And 2 days later, I got a phone call from White House personnel, and it was back and forth with the White House personnel and the agency. And then they invited me to come back about a week and a half later back to DC for interviews, and they offered me the job after the interviews there at SBA as an appointee. And so I do want to come back and talk about my time there, being a Republican in a Democratic administration. From there, I was there a little bit. Things went well. We developed some programs that were pretty influential. And then I ended up as the chief operating officer there. Just as I was really kind of coming into that role, White House personnel called again and said, hey, would you be interested in taking the U.S. Mint? We've got these challenges here. And the challenge was they didn't have any real leadership there. And so they were looking for somebody that could come in and exercise leadership between, the U.S. Mint is one of the 13 bureaus at Treasury, along with IRS and the Office of the Comptroller of the Currency and many others. But there was issues with the leadership at Treasury and also leadership downstream. And so they needed somebody who could lead. And so I took that job, and it was a great job for 2 years. And I think you came up right at the end of that tenure. So after that, I took a little bit of time off and then joined JPMorgan, which is the nation's largest bank. It's the world's largest capitalized bank. So it's a big organization. It has 300,000 employees. And it moves more than $2 trillion worth of money every day. So it's a big place, but it's a great place to work at, and we've got great leadership. And what we've really focused on is including veterans, because that's kind of my tribe, right? Into every facet of what we do, whether it's employment or supporting their businesses or families or their housing or whatever. So we really focus on that, and we have leadership that supports us in that. So that's kind of me in a nutshell. But anyways, I put this picture up here again because along that entire journey, you're never alone. It's your family that's with you there through thick and thin. And so sometimes you're going to be pretty low, and sometimes you're going to be pretty high, and you're going to your head might start to get a little bit big. You're going through Senate confirmation or something like that, and you start thinking, I'm somebody. But these people always know the truth, and they'll keep you grounded. So, I would. I'm happy to hit any of the points you want, Allison, but I will tell you that sometimes you may think, well, I'm only from Bluntstown or Chipola or Bonifay or Marianna or whatever else, but it's a good place to be from. And the older I get and the more time I've spent away from it, the more I appreciate what's offered here. We may not have some things that other places have, but we have things that they don't have. And so as you go out in the world, you'll look back and you'll be more and more grateful. You'll be grateful for, the smaller towns that we're generally from, and you'll be grateful for Chipola and the time here. I look back on my time here, and it was really formative in who I was. I think most importantly, I'd be happy to talk with you about, leadership or journey or anything else like that. But I can sit up here and talk a lot. What I'd really rather do is just answer questions or have a conversation with you guys. So with that, let's just open up the floor, and if I don't get any questions, you'll just have to listen to me ramble on, but I'd rather answer your questions. So anybody got any questions? Yes, sir.
Can you be more specific about what exactly you do in your company in JPMorgan?
Yeah, so let me come back. JP is really kind of difficult to explain in a nutshell, but I advocate for veterans across the firm. So we work in several areas around veterans employment. So we employ veterans, people who've come out of the service. We support veterans who start small businesses, and we do, and I'll go a little bit deeper on that. We support financial health for veterans. In other words, we offer products that at free or no cost to veterans that other people would have to pay for. We do financial planning and financial health for veterans. Many of our active duty military as well, they tend to struggle a little bit financially. Veterans do better than the national average. The active duty military does suffer though. It's just the way it is there. And then a lot of community development type of work in our veterans communities. So more specifically on the veterans piece, on the veterans business piece, one of the things we did last year was we started to look at the survey of the land. And anybody know what venture capital is? Okay. So we started to notice there was a number of veterans coming out starting venture capital funds. In other words, you go out and you get people to give you money, and then you invest that money. But venture capital is pretty specific. It's with early start companies. Usually there's a whole scale to it we could go long on. And you invest in those companies early on, and you hope that one or two of those become the next Google or Facebook or Instagram or something like that. So you get a share of the company for your investment. Well, we've noticed the veterans are pretty much in that space. A lot of their work is in the government and defense work. And so we thought, how can we amplify this work? How can we participate in it? How can we get more veterans in it? So we took, the firm, took $25 million of our own money and started interviewing veteran-founded VC firms, and then we took positions in those firms, so we made commitments. We also convene working groups for them to come in, brief them. We bring the economists in, our senior bankers, others, and kind of do education and workshops with them. But principally, investment side. We do another program specifically for veterans that own companies that where we bring their CEOs in if they're in the growth phase and kind of help them scale their companies. So if they're at 5 million, the goal is to get them to 25 million, something like that. So we do a lot in the veteran space to bring the bank, what we do, to the veterans community. So we touch everything, because when you look at JPMorgan, it's everything from what we call retail bank, your checking account and your deposit account, all the way to what we call the investment bank. It's the people that bank like Nike and Apple and the really big companies, Boeing. So we go into banking service all the way. And then we have what's called asset and wealth management, which has two sides. We have a private bank for individuals, that are extremely wealthy. And then and what we call alternatives. It's alternative funding. It's like venture capital, private equity, things like that. That's a little more for folks who are looking for more sophisticated investments. So hope that answers the question. Yes, ma'am.
Would you say that you knew what you wanted to be when you grew up and went for it, or you took opportunities to say?
That's a great question, right? I knew what I wanted to be, and I'm nowhere near where I wanted to be. And so this is a big point, and I'll foot stomp this one for you. As you go down live, opportunity is going to come up, and you got to say yes. So I tell you about coming to Chipola and going to Florida, right? The other part I don't tell you is I barely graduated, right? I'm kind of a rock. Sometimes I have a hard time writing my own name. So it's true. Read an email from me, you'll think I'm illiterate. But you got to believe in yourself, right? So when those opportunities come in, there's not time for self-doubt. Take it. So in every opportunity it came up, although it wasn't specifically what I want, I didn't know I was qualified. I said, yes. And you just get in there and roll your sleeves up, right? And so there's a couple of things about that. One, you got to be humble enough to listen to the people around you and learn from them if you don't know what's going on. But you need to believe in yourself enough that you can do it. So, and you'll have a sense of direction, which will be good. Listen to your inner voice on that, but humble and listen to people. Say yes to the opportunities. There's a TED Talk that's worth listening to. It's called Fake It Till You Make It. You should listen to that because sometimes you got to fake it till you make it. Nobody's an expert in everything. I can promise you this. I was sitting I was in the Department of Treasury, right? And I'm sitting at the table and I got the Secretary of the Treasury, who had been Chief of Staff to the President, and before that he was the head of office, but some big jobs, right? He had several of them, a guy named Jack Lew and Sarah Bloom Raskin, and they're at the table. And then I've got, the head of, he's like a Rhodes Scholar, Oxford, MIT economist, Nathan Sheets, who's a friend now, who heads the Office of Financial Institutions. I've got, the head of the IRS across the table. And so I'm sitting there, I'm thinking like, oh my gosh, I'm at this table with these guys. I can promise you right then, I wasn't really any smarter than I was when I was here at Chipola. I just had life experiences there. And what I began to realize too, when I got to this rank, this government rank, it's called SCS, I always thought, oh, that'd be so cool. Those guys, they must really have it together. That's not true. Everybody's pretty much the same. Most of us are operating about right here. You'll find some outliers, but most of us are right here. You got to believe in yourself when you're in those spots. I will tell you when I didn't take the opportunity and I regretted it. So just before before 9/11, I was director of purchasing, and they offered me to become the deputy secretary back over at what they call the Department of Business and Professional Regulation. So it's a deputy secretary. It's a confirmed position in the state of Florida, and I didn't take it because I thought, oh, I'll do something else like that. Missed opportunity. I should have taken it, and so I've regretted that. That old saying that says you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. It's true. It's true. Don't be afraid. Don't be afraid of the things that are out there in front of you. And it's going to come from unexpected places, right? So you'll be thinking, this is what I want. This is where I want to be. And the next thing somebody's going to be in like, when I was over there, I thought chief operating at the SBA, it's pretty good. They had been talking to me about moving up to be the deputy agency head, which would have put me in the deputies meeting with the deputy secretary and deputy, commerce and stuff. And they actually finally did come back and offer that to me. And I kind of had to weigh out the mint or this. And so I went back to my family and friends and said, what do you think? And so, but I never saw that one coming, and you won't either. By the way, since we're talking about the mint, since I got a picture, I'll show you a picture this is from inside the West Point Mint here. So I'll tell you a little bit about the Mint real quick. So the Mint's one of the nation's oldest institutions, right? It was established by the Constitution, so it's an enumerated power of Congress to mint money. So although it sits over in the executive branch, its authority really comes out of the legislative branch. So what we do is statutorily controlled by Congress. They have to pass a law. If I'm going to mint a coin that they haven't already given me authority to, I've got to go get the legislation straight. And they legislate every year on this. And so in the Mint, we have, right now, we have 6 facilities. So we have 4 working mints, which is Philadelphia and Denver. It's where that circulating money is that you get out of your pocket every day. Then we have San Francisco and West Point, where we actually do collectible type of coins and bullion type of coins. And then Fort Knox, which belongs to us, the Fort Knox where the gold's kept. It's a depository. We hold there what we call custodial gold. The gold belongs to Treasury, but it's in our custody there. And then the headquarters in Washington, D.C. And so while I was there, we got to go to all the places, spend a lot of time with the folks that made the money and stuff like that. But this is in West Point here. This is working gold. We make gold coins. It's called bullion, and we sell it every year. We do about $3.5 billion worth of business in selling gold coins every year. It's not money. It doesn't have a denomination on it, but it's bullion. It's sold for its purity and its weight. It has it looks like a coin if you saw it. It just doesn't have certain other markings on it. The Mint's interesting though. So the Mint doesn't take any taxpayer money. The Mint's what operates on the revenue it generates. So when we make money, that you guys circulating money, we sell it to the Federal Reserve. The Federal Reserve has to buy that from the U.S. Mint. And so we make money on the quarter and on the dime, we lose money on the penny, and even on the nickel at times. So, but the profit we make there is called seigniorage. So it comes back to the Mint keeps it. We sell a certain type of coin called a numismatic coin. We do about $500 million in that every year. It puts the Mint in the top 100 largest retailers in the nation, online retailers in the nation, because of the volumes that they do. And then bullion coins. So the bulk of the money that we make, though, is on the bullion coins. But anyway, so the Mint, at the end of each year, we kind of balance books up and everything else, and then we determine what we're going to return to Treasury. So the money that we make, we pay it back. So Treasury, the U.S. government's like our stockholders, so we declare a dividend and send it back. So, but it operates revenue neutral from the government. So, anyways, fun fact, you've learned something maybe if you're ever on Jeopardy or something. So, anyways, all right. Other questions?
Of all the jobs you've done and that you've had, what would you say, like, which one taught you the most?
Boy, this is a tough one. What do you think, Renee? Which one taught me the most? Husband? Father? Yeah. She said I didn't learn anything in either of those. All right. So, no, I think that everyone teaches you something different. I think that, for me, probably the biggest one was in the Marines, right, from that standpoint. When you're leading in the military, and this is why I would, don't discount the military service. It's a great way. You come together with people from all over the U.S., every different walk of life, rich, poor, homeless, everybody, and you've got to work together, and you've got to learn to lead people who may or may not want to do the things you want to do. And so many times we see in the movies this kind of military leadership, if it's very like screaming, yelling in your face. There's some of that at boot camp and stuff like that, but real leadership is leadership by example. It's servant leadership. I'll tell you a story really quick that was really, so my first company commander was at Ranger School, right? And so anybody know about Ranger School? Have you ever heard about the Army's Ranger School? So it's one of the most demanding things out there. It's pretty much for about 12 weeks, you don't sleep and you starve. Literally, you starve. These guys will lose, 60 pounds or more in 12 weeks. It's amazing how hard the body can be pushed. Anyways, so when you're starving like that, food is just like it's critical, right? And you'll be thinking about stealing somebody else's food, right? Because it's tough. And I'm trying to abbreviate this a little bit. So you only get like 2 MREs to last you for the week, 2 or 3 MREs. Anyways, there was one soldier there who had lost his MRE, and he started crying. So quietly he started to cry because he'd lost his MRE. Another Marine that was there with my first company commander, my company commander went over and gave him one of the pieces of his MRE. So that's the leadership I'm talking about. That's the leadership that makes a difference, right? It's when you're the first out the door, when you're jumping out of an airplane. It's when you're giving up your personal comfort for somebody else. That's somebody people will follow. And so, that's the leadership. The screaming and yelling thing is not going to nobody's going to follow you with that. It's that sacrificing for others. It's being insightful and thoughtful. It's being appreciative. It's not telling other people how wrong they are. It's through persuasion, getting them to come to this. The other thing I'll tell you that sometimes, and I'll be frank about this, in our country sometimes we've become to believe that compromise is a dirty word. In a big country with a lot of different points of view, compromise is a great word, and democracy is all about some degree of compromise. It's some of what I want, but not all of what I want. We've become a little too polarized on that front, in my opinion, and that I'm not saying that, I don't have strong beliefs about how it ought to be. I don't want anybody else forcing them on me, but I need to allow other people that same privilege as well. So, anyways, off my soapbox on that piece. I think you had a question.
I was gonna say, is that gold in the picture? Is that like used to produce coins, or is that just?
Yeah, this is working gold. So there's a difference. If I took you to Fort Knox and I showed you the gold there, it looks like dirty bronze. It's got a bunch of stuff in it. So back in '33, they just brought all the coins in. They didn't like clean them up and purify it or anything else. They just melted it into bricks, and it looks. You go like, is that gold? When you essay it, you know it's gold. But yeah, this is working gold. So this is pure gold, right? And so we actually take it, turn it into planchettes, 1 ounce round coins, and then we strike it and bundle up, and it's sold. Minimum order is 150 grand and you have to be an authorized buyer. But you know, if you want to place an order, you can. That bar is about 28 pounds there. But so that's not the gold that we keep at Fort Knox or Treasury. That's part of the National Reserve.
28 pounds?
Yeah, that bar in my hand's 28 pounds.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, gold's heavy.
So
So
what's the point of the gold, like, what's the purpose of it?
Fort Knox.
Like, why is it?
Yeah. So the reason I'll lead to a story here. So I just want to make sure I'm okay on time. So the reason the gold's in Fort Knox and other places, other mints and the Federal Reserve in New York has got some. So we came off the gold standard in 1932. So it used to be pegged the value of gold to the dollar, right? So as gold went up, the dollar went up and went down. So we came off that. As part of it, you know, in like 32, maybe the history professor will correct me, I think it was 32. And so what they did is they pulled all the gold back in because they didn't want people trading in gold that way. So they melted it and they pulled it back in the reserve. So all the US currency came back in as gold. And so you couldn't really possess gold, 24 karat gold coins like that, until when the Cougaran started coming back in, and then there was some legislation where we were actually able to do that. By the way, the Cougaran, the reason we get a premium on our coin, we get 3% of the value. And why do people pay that much, 3%? Because the U.S., the purity and the quality is so good, and our mint mark means that much. You get a Cougaran for less, but the purity is a lot less. So anyways, so we came off that. So that gold was melted and all stored back there. So it was all national gold that they had anyways. I will tell you this story real quick, though, while I was at the Mint, because it's one of the better ones. So somehow or other, they admitted for 1933 the double eagle coins, which was the $10 gold coin at the time. They'd made a bunch of them. But they came off the gold standard, so they didn't issue them. They never let them go from the Mint. So they took them, they melted them all down. But somehow or other, about 12 of them, maybe 13 of them, we're not sure, got out into the wild. So one of them got started trading around, and it's called the King Farouk coin. That's got its own history. But anyways, it traded and it sold for, I think, for about, I don't know, it was $7 or $8 million, right, for this 1 ounce gold coin. Well, about that time, a family said, hey, we've got 10 of these in a safe deposit box, and we want you to verify that they're real. And so the Mint met the family and said, yep, they're 100% real. Thank you very much. They're ours. They were never issued. You shouldn't have had them. They were stolen. And so it went all the way to the Supreme Court. It was upheld that they were U.S. Property. So we had, when I was at the Mint, we have all of them at Fort Knox there. I had all of 9 of them that we had at the time in my hand at one time. So, you know, I could hold all the gold I wanted to in both arms that I could carry, and it wouldn't be worth as much as those 9 ounces because it had been struck. So the value of struck coins. Anyways, the most recent, they sold that coin, the one that it sold, they sold it again more recently, and it was over 10 million bucks it sold for. So, so it was at least $90 million I had in 10 ounces. So I was like, you can go to the Bureau of Printing and Engraving, which is where they make the paper money, right? You can hold all the paper you want, you're not going to come close. So, yeah, we can get crazy for the coins. One of the things that I do now is I work with a coin grading company on some of their representational work, and one of the guys that I worked with, he bought a penny for $2 million the other day, and then on the airplane the other day, he told me he bought a nickel for $5. So it's just some of these older coins have that much value, so it's collectible. So yeah, it's kind of a neat world. People are crazy about that and stamps. So I'll teach you the word for the day. Coin collecting, it's called numismatics. So anyways, there you go, word for the day.
For NGC or PCBS?
NGC, yeah. That's
Y'all ever, I don't know if it's a weird question, have y'all ever thought about changing the design of the Silver Eagle? Because it's been the same for like 40 years.
Yeah, so this is where we get some anonymous here. So That's statutorily set. I can't change that, right? So on some coins we can change the design. In gold and silver I have a little more flexibility, but the eagles are that's set. It's like the platinum coin. The legislation tells me what I have to use. I mean, it was very specific about which engraver and which medallion and stuff on the palladium coins. So yeah, but yeah, NGC down in Sarasota, Florida. Yeah, big company. Yeah, so yeah, I have my own label with them. So if you look it up on the thing, yeah, cool.
A little signature and everything.
Yeah, that's it.
Tell them that one that you worked with, that you created that gold coin.
Yeah. Okay. So I'll here's a little homework for you. So, come back. Were you there for that event? Did you come up for that? It was because it was maybe it was just before you got there. So, when just as I was leaving in 2017, the Mint was having its 225th anniversary, and so one thing that we can do is we can do the design on the gold coins. We have some flexibility there, so we decided to do a coin for the 225th anniversary. We did a gold coin, and so we tried to put all the technology, all the craftsmanship we could put into the coin, and so we did an unveiling there, and it was if you look at it, 225th anniversary coin, you're going to see its designs are unique. So it's the first time Liberty was an African American. So if you look at it, it's clearly that. And then the second time, it's the first time we've had a downwing eagle on the back of it, where usually the wings are off straight, but his wings were. So it was really kind of unique. If you look at it, it's edge lettered, it's high relief, well, semi-high relief. It's a proof coin, which means that when the way it works is that when you make a coin, you have the reverse image on two pieces of metal, right? It's called a die. And what happens is a really big press will come together and push that, and that planchette or that metal, that round disc, and it'll put that impression in there. What it actually literally does is it liquefies the metal, and the metal flows into the coin. So if I do a penny, right, like little penny planchettes, we can get hundreds of thousands of coins on a set of dies. But when we do these proof coins, we may get 800 because they're polished, and it gives it a mirror finish on the inside. So we did that. We did an edge lettering where on the edges of the coin, it's lettered. So it takes a separate collet to do that as well. So we put all of the technology in there. And so we tried to keep it as a traditional coin, but we tried to do that. The reason we chose to do those things the way we did was in the Mint Act of 1792, I think that's maybe my time. Just finish up with this. Congress told the Mint what they could and couldn't do, and it was different with coins. And the first thing they told them was to use emblems. It had to have the word liberty on it, and it had to have emblems of liberty. In the past it used to be like a king or a pope or somebody else, right? But we had emblems of liberty, and you've seen it as a tree, most common liberty, and in all of these various formats. So we had liberty on there. We tried to take all those elements in the original Mint Act and incorporate them into the coin. We tried to update it, but show all the technology. And I'll just tell you, right before we did that, I was up at one of the big coin collecting archives up in New York, right? And they brought me out they showed me a gold coin. It was from where Syria's at now, and it was probably about 1200 BC. And it was a small gold coin like that, but because it's gold, it doesn't tarnish or age or anything else. It looked like it was made yesterday. And I thought, there's so many steps into making a coin. You've got, the people who, refine the metal, the people who anneal the metal, the people who strike it, and the people who made those coins. I really wanted people, when they see this coin we had from the 200th, they think about the craftsman who made this coin, because when I looked at that, it told me something about their society. We hope that this tells something about our society and where we're going. And so I will brag on this one point. It's the only coin that we know of to make the front page of the New York Times. We were below fold, but it was front page of the New York Times. So we were pretty happy about that. But anyways,
Can you still get the coin then?
yeah, you can still buy some. You can buy a silver version of it a lot cheaper. I'll just wrap up with this because I think we're kind of at time. But look, we're kind of all the same folks, and I will tell you that no matter where you go in the world, we're all God's children. And when you go to the Hard Rock Cafe, there's a sign up there, and I love it. It says "Love all, serve all." Right. So I think that's one key message I'd leave with you is that we may find people we don't like, we disagree with. Sometimes they may even just flat out whatever. But you know, we're all the same. And no matter where I went in the world, whether I was in Afghanistan or down in Africa or wherever else, most parents all wanted the same thing for their kids, right? They wanted them to be happy, healthy, and have a good life. And I think that's universal as humans. But with that, I would just also remind you that, you know, be proud of where you're from and do the things that will make the place you're from proud of you. So with that, Allison, thanks for having me here. It's a pleasure talking to you guys, and I wish you all the best with your rest of the time at Chipola. Thanks.